Good evening, everyone. So we are going live right, uh, by introducing the speakers right now. So Mr. Raj Waghray heads the entrepreneurship cell at SID IISc, and he has over 25 years of work experience and has played a variety of roles across organizations such as Accenture, Cognizant, and Texas Instrument. So he had also founded two startups and developed products regarding training and consulting services. He is also facilitator with the Art of Living Foundation, author of two books. So right now he's heading the entrepreneurship cell at SID IISc, supporting deep science startups and which are paving way for a great technological push inside the country. And I would also like to present you guys with Alex, who's co-founder and CEO of Azooka Labs. Azooka Labs also won recently the Startup India Award, and many congratulations to you, Alex. He's also product manager at heart and is responsible for product and marketing strategy. Prior to his startup venture, he was director of product management and marketing at Zoho. Alex also has experience of rolling out products to more than 40 global markets via global reseller network and partnership channels. Good. It's pleasure to have you both at this event, sir. So I would love to hear your thoughts about Deep Science's incubation model and related startups across the country. So you can throw some light regarding this.
Prithvi, thank you very much.
Sir, please unmute it, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. So Prithvi, thank you very much for the introduction. Can you give me control so that I can share the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I think I got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just give me a second. Okay, very good evening to everyone out here. I'm presuming you're able to see the screen. We are able to see it?
Yes. We are able to see it.
Lovely. So the way we have structured this, this presentation and this discussion today evening is I'm going to spend about 15-20 minutes talking about, what deep science incubation is all about. And the way we approach it out here at SID, what are the different models of incubation available. And, we also have, as Prithvi mentioned, Alex, who is co-founder and CEO of Azooka Labs. So that is a startup incubated by SID. They have been with us for about 5+ years. And Alex will share his journey, both the highs and the lows of, what it means to actually build a deep science startup from India. Yeah. So this is what I'm going to cover today. A little bit of background about IISc obviously needs no introduction, but talk a little bit about SID and stem cell. Also define what deep science is, right? We talk about deep science, and this question repeatedly comes up. What is deep science? How is it different from deep tech? So we'll cover that in a bit. Building deep science startups is not easy. There are a lot of challenges associated with building deep science startups. So we want to lay it out threadbare in terms of what challenges founders face. And I've been associated with the Incubation Center for almost close to 4 years, and have seen a lot of these startups, getting incubated, and going through ups and downs. So having seen some of these challenges, I want to share some light on them. Having said that, it's not all gloomy. There's a brilliant time for scientists or entrepreneurial nature to build deep science startups. So we'll talk about what is the ecosystem available, what is the support available from different government agencies, and so on. More importantly, I want to touch upon what models we have for incubation out here at IISc, and then I'll hand it over to Alex to, for him to share his journey. Is this fine?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yeah. So IISc, it really doesn't need any introduction. It's a public deemed research university for higher education and research in science, engineering, design, and management. It's also an institute of eminence. In existence for over 112 years, lot of recognition, lot of awards. So the way IISc is structured is there are 6 broad divisions, and under the divisions there are different departments. Close to about, I think, 44 departments and 16 centers, autonomous centers. So one of the autonomous centers is Society for Innovation and Development, which is where the stem cell or the incubation arm of SID resides. Right. So I'm not going to go too much into IISc. I think it needs really no introduction. So SID, where the incubation cell operates out of, and you keep on seeing this logo of stem cell, which is the incubation arm of SID. So we have 3 core business units. The first business unit is called CORE, which is a short form for collaborative research with large enterprises. So SID was established in 91 with a single purpose mission of being a bridge between the institute and the external world, right? So CORE does all long-term research with large enterprises gets funneled through CORE. So currently we have more than 500 projects working with going on with over 200 companies, right? And these are all large enterprises, both Indian as well as MNCs. So that is CORE. On the other extreme, so CORE does work with large enterprises. On the other hand, we have the stem cell, which incubates deep science, deep tech startups. So we provide the facilities, the whole 9 yards for the startups to get incubated. Compared to other incubation centers, both in Bangalore as well as around the country, we are a very small incubation center, right? We do about 8 to 10 startups every year. We have done now close to about 40 startups. 15 plus of them have commercialized or already at a very early stage of commercialization. So on one hand, we have work that happens with large enterprises. On the other hand, we have incubation for startups. In between, there is this area for mid-sized enterprises, right? And Times Square essentially works to infuse technology and innovation into MSMEs, right? So they kind of run multiple programs for MSMEs, and these are all structured programs, where they take them through different departments, kind of expose the MSMEs to different innovations that are happening within the university, and try to take it out, build innovative products and kind of diffuse the innovation into the MSME sector. So that is about IISc, and that is where the stem cell, which is the incubation arm, fits into the overall ecosystem of IISc and SID. Okay, so let us define what deep science is, right? We keep on talking about deep science. So what do we mean by deep science, right? So the way we refer to deep science is it is novel, it is game-changing technology that offers significant advances over the current technologies that are in use. I have a colleague who puts it very, very nicely. He says, there are 2 aspects of a problem. There is a what and there is a how. When we look at the what, these are all problems that are India-centric problems that the startups are trying to solve. How they solve it is where deep science comes in, and that is rooted in, the solutions are rooted in interdisciplinary sciences. What does it mean? It means, you use interdisciplinary sciences, you provide innovative technology solutions that are more advanced in nature, right? So there is some kind of a breakthrough in those solutions. They solve for major societal and environmental challenges. More than technology, right? What they can also do is they can also disrupt either existing markets, or they are able to create new markets. And essentially, because this is deep science, there is an underlying IP that is very, very hard to either replicate or to reproduce, and it is well protected. Yeah. And as I mentioned, it encompasses numerous fields, which essentially means we are talking about, multiple level of deep sciences, advanced materials or biotech, quantum computing, AI, stuff like that. Okay, so why does deep science matters and why now? So let me put this graph up, right? We'll take a trip back in time to see where deep science links were forged, so that we can see where this is all headed, right? So this is the world GDP per capita income of planet Earth from time immemorial, right? So what do we see? We see that there was an inflection point somewhere around 1500, 1600, 1700 time frame. And what happened in that time frame? So for those who don't know, right, somewhere around 1687, Isaac Newton, he published a scientific treatise called Principia, and that set the foundation for all technology innovations and scientific innovations to come in force, right? So this kind of set in motion a new age of what I can say as experimental sciences, right? And a whole lot of things started developing from that. The whole industrial revolution, you can say, we can kind of trace it back to this one particular event, right? Now, if you see, you can see the progress across domains, right? Uh, Take a look at printing press somewhere right here, right? We're talking about 1500s, yeah. And if you look at, we are talking about only what 500-600 years back, yeah. So everything, whether it is telescope, whether it is steam engines, gas turbines, right? All those kind of things have started emerging out of, at that particular point of inflection in history, right? Okay, so what does this mean, right? It shows that, deep science, deep tech kind of help leapfrog progress, yeah? Uh, if I go back and, if I put a life expectancy map of, people who have lived on this planet, right? It will practically resemble the GDP per capita map, right? So the life expectancy also kind of shot up, right? So not only what has deep science, deep tech done, it has reshaped the economic landscape, right? Look at the GDP income, it has gone up. It has raised our standard of living. It has lifted an enormous amount of population out of poverty. It has increased our life expectancy, yeah? More than that, right? Simple things as, painkillers, they have decreased pain and suffering in the world. Now, what happens? Every new technology that comes out of deep sciences, it creates new marketplaces, revitalizes the economy, right? And so it has a cascading effect. And we are seeing this more and more, right? We look around the world today, we see this happening. The more disruptive the deep scientific theory, the more disruptive the technological change, and greater the impact on economy and society at large. Right? That is a given. So I just want to take a pause out here. These are the UN SDGs, the Societal Development Goals. Take all these 17 goals, right? And you will see there will be an element of deep science or deep tech mapped to these, can be mapped to these 17 goals, which will actually help humanity as such achieve these goals, right? Whether it is providing clean drinking water, whether it is providing, low cost steel without carbon emissions, right? You talk about it, right? How do we increase the agricultural efficiency or food efficiency, right? All those kind of things, including simple things like how do we manage the traffic in Bangalore today, right? All the solutions are going to come out of deep science, deep tech. Okay, so what are the challenges deep science, deep tech startups face, right? And this is something that we have seen close hand, having incubated about 40 plus startups, and there is a recurring theme, right? If you take a look at the larger ecosystem, we feel that India is punching below its weight in terms of deep science funding. Yeah, there's some very interesting statistics over here, right? So if you can see, there's only 4% of funding, right, has come to deep science, deep tech startups out of the funding received by overall e-commerce fintech startups between this period of 2014 to 18. There are no great unicorns to talk about in deep science startups, right? And the reason for that is, it takes a significant amount of time to build deep science startups. There's a long gestation period, 3 to 5 years before the product can, not even the product, the MVP can start reaching the market. During this time frame, there's a large amount of uncertainty, right? New competition can emerge, failure can happen, all those things can happen, right? So there's a high element of uncertainty, high element of risk. Then you require a significant amount of capital to build deep science startups, right? So the money has to be spent upfront. You look at R&D culture, right? Our GDP spent is 0.7% of India's GDP is spent on R&D, right? As compared to 2.1 in China, 4.3 in Israel. Private companies contribute 38% as compared to 71% globally. And the biggest thing is, when it comes to deep science startups, we feel that there is a lack of, there's a deficiency of business skills, right? A great scientist, but there is a gap that needs to be bridged when it comes to, building business models and taking the startup to success. Okay, and we have seen this, these challenges. We have seen this at very, very close quarters, right? Significant amount of money is required, right? So you're going to take 3 to 5 years. If you're talking of biotech startups, you're talking of medtech startups, can take longer. So if you're building vaccines, for example, 7 years is minimum, right? So where do these startups find the money, right? We see investment today in deep science, deep tech startups, deep science startups specifically, is very, very low, right? This is changing, but it's changing very slowly. Yeah. Then there are associated issues with the ecosystem, right? So you're trying to build a product, you need manufacturing capabilities. You go to the manufacturers, you want something built, especially, you want only couple of, let us say, pieces of equipment. Hardly anybody will be willing to do that, right? Quality of manufacturing will not be good. Most of the times our startups go outside, get things manufactured and import them. Every small thing when it comes to deep science, deep tech startups have to be imported. Metals have to be imported. Product design skills are missing, right? So we have seen some of these challenges with our startups. Right. So when we talk to scientists, they say, what, research is easy, and then they figure out when they're trying to build the startups that taking the research from TRL 1, 2, 3 level to TRL 7, 8, 9 is incredibly hard. As you move from research to development to deployment, right? It's really like scaling at a different level. You need different skills. You need a lot of money. So a whole lot of things out there. Right. Now, having said that, it is not, as I said, it's not all doom and dreary. It is really is a great time to be an entrepreneurial scientist, right? And I will tell you the reasons. There is a significant amount of funding that comes through government, right? So the government focuses on funding deep science technology. We see this through BIRAC grants. We see this through, other funding mechanisms that the government has in place. Yeah. So there is NSTDB, which has a cluster of incubator networks across the country. Whole lot of push from their side for innovation, entrepreneurship, all this Nidhi-Star schemes, Nidhi Prayas, and so on. DBT, through their several programs such as BIRAC, PIG, BioNest, etc. They provide a lot of support to deep science startups. Equity funding is available through different programs. Then Startup India, right, under DIPP, they have this programs for supporting intellectual property filings. There's this 10,000 crore fund of funds, national startup awards. If you're in Karnataka, then there's Karnataka government's Elevate awards, right? So there are a whole lot of mechanisms that startups can use to actually find the initial capital to go and build the products out. Yeah. And then there are other mechanisms, right? We are sitting here today talking under the umbrella of Niti Aayog Subtle Innovation Mission. SID is a grantee of established Incubation Center scheme. So we get funds from Niti Aayog, which we kind of funnel to startups. Then there's MEDI's Tide 2 scheme. There is IDEX Open Challenges. And then there are a whole lot of awards, grants, which corporates, NGOs run all through the year, right? I mean, you'll be surprised. There are startups in my cohort which have, over the past few years, have raised over 6 crore only through awards. Yeah. So all in all, I think it's a great time to do deep science, deep tech startups. Yeah. My only grouse, right, really is the quantum of funding that is available to deep science startups. You can see this 20.7 lakhs. This is a report coming out of NSTDB. It's on average. So that needs to go up. Yeah. But in the absence of that, there are mechanisms available for entrepreneurial scientists to go and build. Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk about how SID kind of supports deep science startups, whatever model is. What are the incubation mechanisms available within SID? So obviously we sit under this great institution called Indian Institute of Science. The best of faculty, best of scientists, researchers, all available within the campus. So I don't think there's any other better place than IISc to actually come and build your startup. Yeah. Focus really is on deep science startups. We also look for social impact. You have to be solving for India. So that is one of the things that we look for. The proposition is we provide a longer incubation runway for startups. We know it takes 3 years, it takes 5 years, so we provide that runway for startups. Facilities are available. We are right here in Bangalore. All the other deep science ecosystem, apart from the IT ecosystem, is actually here in Bangalore, right? So the defense establishments, DRDO, DRDL, BEL, ISRO, CPRI, all these, they're all available at Bangalore, right? So we have experience in incubating deep science startups. So we know what it means. We know how to support entrepreneurs. So as I said, a proposition is we provide this long-term horizon, longer incubation period, almost up to 5-6 years for startups to build their products and go to market. If you need access to IISc research and patents, that is available. We facilitate that. State-of-the-art facilities, right? Whether it is animal testing facility, nanoscience facility, SCRC, every lab, it's state-of-the-art lab that is available for startups to use. One of the other things what we do with the startups is we tie them out, one with faculty advisors, from IISc, and then also we bring mentors from the industry, people who have been there, done that, to kind of coach CEOs or founders on aspects related to business, right? So that is something we do very well, and it has worked out well for us, right? And obviously we are located in Bangalore, so that's a huge plus. Okay. Now, apart from incubation, what we have seen is, a lot of youngsters come to us with great ideas, but that idea is still not well formed, right? So there is still probably some way for them to go before we can actually incubate them. So if the idea is great, we put them through a 1-year program called the Entrepreneurship in Residence, where they get to hone their idea, validate their idea, almost take it from, maybe from lab to kind of validation phase, and use the time to actually think about business models, create their business plan, and eventually move into incubation. And we support this EIR, the people within EIR, with a small amount of funding, which takes care of their day-to-day living expenses, provide them access to tools, laboratories. Again, mentoring is provided by faculty at IISc, and we take care of other expenses that they may have while they're doing this in terms of using the labs, equipments, consumables, and stuff like that, right? So if you have an idea which is really early, come talk to us, see whether you're eligible for a EIR program. We'll be very happy to put you through those spaces, right? Okay, at IISc there are 3 or 4 different incubation centers. So obviously STEM is the overarching incubation cell. We also have 2 technology business incubators supported by Government of Karnataka. There is one called CPDMET, which is a dedicated geriatric medtech incubation center at Department of CPDM, and then there's another TBI called INSENSE in the Center of Nanoscience. The latest addition to our incubation arm is called GEECI, stands for Gallium Nitride Ecosystem Enabler Center and Incubator, right? So this is very new, hardly about a month, 2 months old, supported by METI, very focused on gallium nitride incubation, right? So a little bit about CPDMET. This is a medtech and geriatric healthcare TBI supported by Karnataka government. The idea is, the focus really is on incubating geriatric medtech startups. Again, there are a whole lot of labs and facilities and testing facilities available that the startups can use. The other one, as I mentioned, is Incense, which is the TBI for incubation at Center for Nanoscience. Again, this is a Karnataka government supported TBI, and all the facilities at the TBI are available for startups to use. So there's this 14,000 square feet clean room for nanofabrication, almost a 7,000 square feet clean room for nano characterization, right? So a whole lot of things. If you're doing MEMS, IC packaging, right, stuff like that, this is the place to come. So this is our team. We are headed by Professor Guru Murthy, who is also a professor at IISc in mechanical engineer, and he's also the CEO of SID. Apart from that, we have Murli, who is the chairman for Stem Cell. Brings in a lot of experience. Specifically, he's been a partner at VC firm earlier, so whole lot of support and guidance and so on for startups in terms of how to raise, different business models and stuff like that. Dr. C.V. Nataraj is a lifelong Unilever person, right? Brings a lot of experience in terms of deep science, innovation management, building consumer products, and obviously entrepreneurship. And then I am there, and along with me, I have two more colleagues, Suresh, Hiramat, and Dinesh. So between us, we manage the entire ecosystem of incubation at Stem Cell, right? So I want to pause here. I'll hand it over to Alex. And, if you're listening, if you're watching this, if you're an entrepreneurial scientist based in India and you want to, do your deep science startup, here's the email. Write to us at stem.cell@iisc.ac.in, and we'll be happy to, converse with you. Yeah. Alex, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Raj.
Right. So Alex has been, as I mentioned, he's a CEO, co-founder at Azooka, and he will talk about his journey.
Yeah, thank you, Raj. So thank you, Raj. So hi, I'm Alex D. Paul. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Azooka Labs. I'm here to share a journey on how we started and how SID has helped us in a couple of very important stages for us to reach wherever we have reached. So to kind of tell Raj what he was trying to say is SID is like if all of you have read this book called Cathedral and the Bazaar. If you have not read it, I think you should read it. So the difference is, to build a cathedral or to build a temple, it takes a longer period of time. But once it is built, I think it stands for a longer time. It creates its own business around it, and there are people visiting it, and it stands as a monument forever. Whereas a bazaar is nothing but, you find an opportunity, an upcoming trend, and you create something that solves the trend, and it creates some cash flow, but eventually it doesn't say. So I think SID does this job of helping people to build temples that is going to stand for a longer period of time, and it is here to bring a revolution. So we are glad to be one such startup selected by IISc. So I'll tell you what we do. So we are a fluorophore company. We started by reporting India's first nucleic acid stain, which we believed was very, very vital for India's diagnostic purposes. And from there, we've moved on to becoming safe fluorophore company. These are genomic consumables, which are very, very important and used every day in research use labs and in molecular diagnostics. So we got from IP to market in less than 5 years. So this is our timeline. So we started in 2016. We reported.
Alex, I think you're not audible.
Okay. Yeah. Is it clear now?
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah, now you're on.
Okay. Is it okay? Yeah.
Yes.
So do you want me to repeat, or should I continue from where I am right now? Hello?
Hello,
Continue, sir.
Alex.
Alex, you're audible, Alex. You can continue.
Okay, yeah. So this is our IP to market journey in a period of 5 years. So what we have done is from an idea that we had in 2015, we actually went and met IISc team in order to, create a product. And there were a lot of discussions. We actually spent more than, I should say, 12 a year in order to, get the business plan ready and get a plan of how we are going to capture the market. We had preliminary trials, and then we improved on the product, and then we kind of launched to market. So just a minute. So what we first did was, deep science is a big hustle. I think it is very important to kind of understand that you're getting into a zone where your products may not get into the market at least for 5 years. So we have to be ready for that. And one thing that we kind of spent a lot of time understanding is how, I mean, we understood that we have got something pretty important, but eventually, how is it going to create a billion people impact? The first rule that you are evaluated in ISA is your product or whatever you're going to create, is it going to bring about is it going to touch a billion lives in India? Is it going to bring a societal change? How is it better, faster, or more cost effective than whatever is there in the market? So that is where we spent most of the time in order to establish a billion people impact. And then it was the founding team, or the team in fact, where we kind of say that this is what the team members, each of us, are going to be working on, and this is how we are going to kind of bring method to the madness, because the idea itself is in a very early stage then. And then the third part is the most important part, which is business plan and projections on how we are really go to market strategy. Because in this case, right, the idea is kind of one person, the rest of us is purely execution. From a science point of view, you're coming with the plan, you're coming with this is what I want to do. But eventually, in terms of the business plan, is where you decide how you're going to go to the market, how you're going to get your customers or your partners, or find an acquisition partner. That becomes a very important thing. So, and what we did after we got incubated is that first we had to move the product through different milestones. So what we did was we started applying for a lot of grants and contests. So being in IISc also helps you to get access to a lot of competitions that are happening not only in India and also abroad. So I think we got up to around up to 2 crores of grants, 2 crores of equity free money only from the grants and contests that we applied to. So this gives us a good runway, not only a good runway, but earlier when the product is not validated, applying through all these grants where you write the proposal, you create this is my market. When you slice down the market, when you slice down different customer verticals, it gives you a clear focus of how the business is going to roll down to the customers, or how it's going to trickle down, or each of the benefits, how it's going to pass down to each customer vertical and segment. So this was an important thing. This is what we did from 2017 to 2018. And we actually got a very small space, but the space doesn't matter there. What you get access is to ISC's expertise in a particular area. In our case, it was molecular biology, because it is not only about the devices. I think there are a lot of other incubation centers that gives you on a particular monthly subscription, you get access to the best devices. The problem is you have to find somebody who actually has the expertise to troubleshoot or to understand the kind of devices. IISc came ready-made with that, because the institute is known for its expertise in molecular biology, and we were able to get access with it. Within the first 2 years, we rolled out our first product to market. We did our entire branding, and we even did a first sale. We technically couldn't do a sale because we were in an incubation facility. But however, it was very important for us to establish that the customer is willing to pay for the product. So although we didn't report it as revenue, we did a bill of sale via a material transfer agreement to get customers, or to get your early adopters to kind of get used to the idea that they have to pay for a particular service, or this is the amount that the customer is willing to pay for whatever you have created. So you can see the first 500 rupees obviously shows that we got a first order before the demonetization happened. So we went ahead with the field trials where we met a lot of customers. We took to the road, meeting all of biotech research labs, most of the institutions, most of the industrial customers. We gave them free samples. Some of them we engaged with a bill of sale agreement, so that we are able to get traction in the market. So after all this, what happened was the product did not perform as expected in the market, primarily because we had got from a natural source and it was having some batch to batch variations. So apart from the financial funding and everything, we got a lot of important advice from IISc or mentoring from IISc in terms of how to manage your IP portfolio, or what is a winning IP portfolio look like, how should we actually file for patents in different countries, and primarily in terms of solving the product problem. So one thing that, so quick background about me that I forgot to mention is that I'm not from biotechnology, or I don't have any previous experience in biotechnology before starting Azooka. So I had come from a IT background, which was primarily Zoho, which was a product play into IT service management. So when I made this move into this, so I had no idea about chemistry, for that matter, synthetic chemistry, which is the cutting edge of technology, which is very, at least from India, it's very difficult to crack it, and very few companies have cracked it. So IISc, based on IISc's advice, they said that if you wanted to fix this problem, you have to do molecule synthesis and make sure there are no batch to batch variations, and you have control on the product and the performance. So this was a very critical move for the product, because after this we became a different beast, because once we got the molecule synthesized, we've got around 36 variants of the product, and each of these molecules could actually bind to different building blocks of biology, so that we were not, the first pitch was only one product called Tintorang, where we said that it was a nucleic acid stain. But after this, the product line had changed to all the building blocks of molecular biology. We considered this as a big step. I mean, in terms of the, and the other big factor was in terms of the IP portfolio and how to file IP in different countries. So this IP game is pretty expensive if you, and that too in biotech, there are not many patent officers, or are not many lawyers who can really handle it very well, because there is a lot of circumventing, and there is a lot of fencing that is required in order to protect your own research and find. I think if finding the right molecule or science is a big challenge, protecting your investment or protecting your find or protecting your innovation is an even bigger challenge, so that it can be licensed, so that it can actually go out to the market and expect the way it is. So what happened after the 2020 was that we, all of us, I think, had this COVID that hit us very bad. And during this point of time, there was a small lull, because every business had closed down. There was no direction in terms of what we wanted to do. However, since we were the ones who said that, PCR is the way to go, an RT-PCR. So we did a big bet on molecular diagnostics even before this happened. At that point of time, the Indian market was only 11 to 12% of molecular diagnostics method. Most of the market was betting on ELISA-based kits and ELISA-based reagents. In one way, COVID kind of exposed this problem, and made sure that every confirmatory test has to be RT-PCR, which means that we actually moved to molecular diagnostics in a few months, because that was WHO's mandate. So that presented us with a new opportunity to make sure the products came to the forefront, because during the COVID times, the price of the chemicals had gone really skyrocketing. Our competing product, Cyber Group of Dyes, which Thermo Fisher owns via an acquisition from Invitrogen. So the products were priced close to 70,000 rupees for 500 microliters. So that is roughly four drops selling at more than the cost of diamonds, or more than the cost of iPhones, the latest iPhones, if you will. So that was a real problem, and we had actually wanted to really feature this. And we were also part of the IISc COVID-19 response team when this happened. And there was a challenge posted saying that, the problem is that our primary healthcare centers are not being used in COVID, because there is no cold storage in all these facilities, and there is no proper sample collection that is happening. And most of the viral transport medium at that point of time had a lot of contamination issues, and people were dealing with the live virus, because while transporting, it required cold storage and great care in handling, because it could go wrong. After all this, you have to come back to molecular diagnostics method for RNA extraction and quantification. So that is where, because we were handling RNA stains for quite a longer time, so what we did was we carved out a product from whatever we had used in the lab and released a molecular transport medium that actually got a lot of attention from the right people, and we were able to kind of get a product out. At this point of time, I have to mention that it was SID's push to the market. So they understood that we are having a product and going to market can really help us. So with SID's funding and support, we got a manufacturing facility which was already GMP certified and ISO certified, so that we could hit the ground running with the products. So this eliminated a lot of setup. So setting up a new facility will probably cost you a lot, and also the time taken, that is because in market timing is everything. So it gave us the right runway to hit the market and to get the customers. So I've just posted a couple of pictures of the new facility, and we have also kind of fine-tuned it to our new product range. So apart from whatever I had mentioned, we are also working on a saliva-based RDT, and the funding. I think IISc not only gives you the technical mentoring in order to make your products better, but capital becomes a very, very important, or it is the lifeline of a business, and to get access to capital at the right point of time is also important. So that's when I think SID helped us with funds from Honeywell and Citigroup, which was pretty important for us to make this step to the market. So apart from that, a couple of important things that we are working on is solving India's biggest challenges. One of that is saliva-based. We are working on a saliva-based RDT, because now that the COVID problem has not yet been completely solved, with economies opening, it is very important for us to have a saliva-based rapid diagnostic test. Most of the tests available right now is blood-based. We cannot use it repeatedly in children or people traveling abroad. It's very difficult for us to use it. So we are coming up with a saliva-based RDT that we hope that is going to change a lot of things. And so before I close, I think I want to leave you with a couple of mistakes that we did and that could probably help you not to repeat the same mistake. So the first thing is, when you have an idea and you want to get started with your incubation, it is very important to kind of give a market viability to your idea, whether it is because there are a lot of innovations, a lot of inventions, whether there is a market ready to grab it. And the timing is also important. You could be early to a market or you could be late to a market, but eventually you have to understand whether your product or market or your product has takers or not. Will people adopt it? Will the early adopters take it? Or will you be able to move it as a business? Becomes very important. That's the kind of the first check that you must do. And second thing is, in terms of your product, the market size need to be bigger. I know that every product has a market size. Everything that you create may find a few buyers. It is very important for you to understand whether you have $1 billion and a growing market. That is very important for you to make sure you consider when you are creating the idea or presenting it. And the third point is to have a finding team with complementary skills. So a lot of times when the founders or a lot of the team groups up, they find somebody very similar to them. A scientist finds another scientist or people in another domain, thinking that this person is very great and he may look great on the pitch deck and all that. But eventually there is no, when the actual, in the daily run, right? So there is not many people who really contribute and contribute to the as a co-founder. So it's very important to find somebody who's along with you in every step and able to contribute in things that you're not very good at, or to find for your every weakness, you have to make sure your partner or your partnering team, co-founding team has the complementary skill sets. And a couple of red flags and some mistakes that we really did that we could have avoided is do not create LLPs or proprietary firms or complicated things. So that really complicates your incubation. It is always good to start with a private limited entity, or before you starting the company itself, it is probably you want to discuss the idea with IISc. That would be a good step rather than creating a complicated entity, which is very difficult to deal with. It's one of the mistakes that we did. And second thing is a couple of other mistakes that I found is don't create multiple companies for every idea. So while talking or when I get to people saying that I have this company which is for this, but I also have another company in which I'm a director. These are all definitely red flags. And no, for every pivot, don't create a different company. Sometimes when we meet people at the technical, especially at the BIRAC or DST related segments, where the scientist is they're very shy about asking for a lot of money. So even if we tell them, this requires at least 7 crores or $1 million for you to take it to the market, most of them try to cut back and say that, I just need 3 crores. After that, everything will be profitable. These are all definitely models that don't fly, especially with SID. You have to make sure that if you're a scientist, you have to try to help get a business coach or get a business advice in terms of how you're going to translate your innovation into a business model that can thrive on its own. So that becomes very important. So these are my quick things in touching upon the journey um, from idea to creating a minimum viable product, and we made a lot of pivots in this. So one thing that from the Azooka's perspective, is that we haven't changed the pitch for the last 5 years. Almost haven't changed the pitch for the last 5 years, because when we started in 2015, and even when we failed, we just presented one product called Tintorang, which has got huge potential in the diagnostic industry. We kept saying the same story for 5 years, and COVID made the story real by actually making the product important. Before that, we never got this kind of attention. People didn't understand what we were saying when we said we were doing nucleic acid science or safe nucleic acid states, which are critical for India. So the story didn't fly for a long time, but eventually it is up to you to build your conviction and to really believe in what you do. And especially in deep science, I think you have to develop a thick skin, you have to develop everything, because I think eventually you see a lot of people who are able to create apps or different kind of things and are able to make quick money. This requires kind of special determination to see your innovation hit the market. So, so that is all I wanted to share. If you have any questions regarding this, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thanks a lot, Alex and Raj Waghray sir, for presenting your thoughts about deep science incubation model in startups. So it was really nice to understand, and especially Raj sir connecting anthropological history and SDGs with deep science. And of course, Alex, it was a wonderful journey you had. I think you were a little honest about your journey, and I think that's what even every startup needs to be left with the success stories. So there are a couple of questions. So first, I would like to address it to the Raj sir. So basically, how do you think that deep sciences startups are faring with respect to other uh, countries' startups? Are there similar growth stories happening around the world, or is it like we should pick up with respect to the deep science startups? And second question to the Raj sir would be, when you talk about capacity building, because deep science startups needs interdisciplinary skill sets, and how do we as a country should focus on empowering the youth with respect to the right skill sets within this industry?
So let me take the first one. I think what you asked about, is the challenge same for deep science startups in other countries? I think it is true, right? The only difference probably is the availability of availability of money, right? Uh, I think it kind of eases the pain in countries like US, Israel, and so on, right? But the journey, irrespective, is the same, right? If you have money, all you can do is you probably can crunch your timelines. Yeah. And we have seen this. I think the biggest example, what we see out here today, and because of COVID, is the acceleration of timelines for vaccines, right? Wouldn't have been possible. I mean, 2019, if somebody would have said, we are going to develop a vaccine in 6 months, you would have been locked out of the home, right? Yeah. So I think, challenges remain the same, right? And, there is this very nice book that I read earlier, maybe about 3 years back, called Venture Investing in Science. I don't remember the author's name right now, but essentially it talks about similar kind of challenges that deep science startups face in US, right? Whole lot of money. I think the premise of the book was, there is this whole lot of VC money flowing into all these pure play software companies, right? And essentially, there has been a breakdown in terms of funding for deep science startups, right? And some very innovative statistics and so on out there within that book. But the challenge is the same, right? And some of these deep science startups also face the same challenge out here. Yeah. Okay. Your second question was about interdisciplinary sciences and so on. I think my only recommendation or only advice is for the youngsters to come join IISc, right? Right, whatever the qualification examination is, come, do your undergraduate, do your postgraduate, do your research out here. Great place to be in.
Right. So thanks for the insightful discussion, insightful solution, sir. And with respect to the question to Alex, so generally the venture capitalists have a time period of 5 to 7 years, and that would be the really challenging barrier for deep science startups. So how did your startup, uh, apart from grants, so what were your experience with venture capitalists, and how do you think that the VCs have to gear up to promote these kind of startups?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think venture capital for deep science startup is actually running dry. Okay, so it is not a lot of venture capital investments are available for biotech startups, or for that matter, deep science startup. I think each one has taken our own way to kind of survive. So I think the method that we took was grants and other contests. So uh, from what I hear from the VCs, right? So one thing that as founders, as people who are starting the company, you should be ready for is if you are coming to a market stage, until you are come to a stage where you are able to hit the market and get your first few customers in order to validate, it is difficult. But I think after that, once you hit a run rate, I think there could be a possible revenue stream flow. And once you're able to do that, see, I think what we have to do is first you have to nail the business model in terms of how your customers are coming in, how you're going to do that. And then probably there can be a new set of VCs who are going to be coming in. But I think for deep science startup, the environment is not there. The only way I think even some advisors from the National Startup Award is relocating to another country where there is already, or at least for that matter, relocating your HQ in order to get funding. So that seems to be the only way right now for deep sciences startup. I wish there could be a lot of patrons of science, patrons in technology, who are doing what Y Combinator is doing in terms of how Paul Graham set up an entire ecosystem of new age startups that are killing it today. So that kind of an ecosystem is missing in India. So I think if really people who are HNIs or people who are plush with funds will come and create something which is a VC for deep science is a dream, but still the venture capitalist is a long shot for us. Yeah.
Alex, that could be a goal for you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Raj.
I said that could be a wonderful goal for you to have.
Yeah, yes, Raj. Once we get funded, or once we break big, or once we have a good acquisition exit, we'll definitely do that.
It was a nice one. And second question is like, how do you think that during your initial journeys until now, what kind of government, basically the challenges faced by you with respect to government, and do you think there should be any interventions from government side with respect to policy making or anything from with respect to the deep science startup? because there are DST working and there is a technological economic board, engineering board working, and there are different verticals working on various departments. So how do you see that DBT or DST should take your challenges and then solve the challenges down the line?
Okay, so first I would like to give some compliments to the Department of Science and Technology and Department of Biotechnology, because one thing that I found was, I think the funds, their program, actually I really thought that it is not going to be great, honestly, right? But I think they had a very good program, especially Department of Science. We won Department of Science and Technology. I think the way they took us to Harvard, the way that they took us to MIT in order to get a scoop of what is really happening. And in all that, I found that there was a lot of care in the team in order for us to succeed. I think that's a good step. And in terms of DBT also, the funds are really good. But one thing that I wish this could happen, okay? So the quantum of funds. So yes, everybody gets a Department of Biotechnology Ignition grant, but along with that, the quantum of funds that are required needs to be increased by at least 50%, because the expenses have gone up year on year. So we are also facing a market inflation. So the grants have remained the same over a period of 5 to 7 years. So considering the inflation, I think they should actually increase the grant size to match the growing years. And second point is that some of the time, right? So the grants comes in tranches. Okay, so yes, we get this big grant, but eventually that comes in tranches, and the tranches sometimes that doesn't happen on time. So, for example, when we are aligned to a market where we are paying a vendor, and if the particular tranche doesn't comes on, there are situations where the vendor has sued us because we didn't get to pay the bills on time. So I think one of the things that they could really, if they could move the machinery to make sure the tranches are on time, or already the quantum of funds is very small, then why do it in tranches? Do it in one shot. So these sort of minor tweaks can really play a big role in terms of this. And another thing is, I think most of the times, right, these funds are advertised in known circles. Maybe in you have to watch for it very carefully, or else you'll eventually miss it. So creating a one-stop shop, that is, and if, for all these grants, we have to fill the same forms again and again. Something like that could be an aggregated form where your portfolio is managed in one shot, and the same grants you can apply. These are all minor tweaks, but I think on the whole, if they increase the size of the funds and make sure there are no tranches, that will be a great relief for now.
That was definitely points to be taken from our side as well, the government side. We will try to take up this whenever we have an opportunity with the secretaries. Thanks a lot, Alex, and thanks a lot, Raj sir. And I would like to also ask the audience if they have any questions with respect to the deep sciences startups. You are free to interact with them.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all.
Prithvi, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Prithvi. Yeah. Thank you, Raj.
Everyone, thank you very much for listening. Bye.
Bye.